Hey, good afternoon, everybody. And to those that are on the other side of the pond, good evening. This is John Michael Salvato, and you're watching The Brew, a weekly talk show on focused on queer pagan spirituality and news and views and quite frankly, a little bit of irreverence every 5 or 6 minutes. And I'm sad and excited to say that today, and hopefully he'll be watching with us. Today, my co-host, as you guys have seen through the first season, Raphael Ray, the host and owner of RadiantReality.com, has had some incredible stuff that I'm not going to steal his thunder and he can share that with everybody later. But some incredible stuff open up to him. And I'm just so excited for him. I can't even find words for it. But because of these new ventures and new opportunities, he's not able to be here on the show on a regular basis. So he will still stop in from time to time when schedule allows. But today we're really excited because we've got two very special guests and friends of mine with us on today's show, and I think you're going to really enjoy the topic. Let me first start by getting a handle on these titles. There we go. So my very first guest, and I can't tell you where they show up on your screen because I'm clueless about that, but he's an author of 9 books, a respected metaphysician, founding minister of the Centers for Spiritual Living in Greater Pittsburgh, former spiritual leader of Unity Harrisburg. He's got a doctorate in holistic theology, a master's in social work.
Correct.
Social work. And his latest book, From the Trailer Park to the Pulpit, I've been waiting all afternoon to say that, can be found on Amazon. And it's absolutely delightful to have you here. Welcome, Dr. Terry Drew Karanen. And did I do your last name right this time?
You did, and Terry is just fine. There's so much alphabet soup after my name, it just is much easier.
And our second guest, I'm equally excited to have. We actually at one time all lived in the same general vicinity, and he is also a celebrated author, a metaphysician, high priest in the Gala Covens community, as well as being a leader and administrator of a number of health and wellness and metaphysical groups on social media. So please welcome our second guest, Casey Giovinco. Did I do your last name right?
You were great.
Fantastic. All right, guys, today's topic, and before we get started, let me just say, of course, we would appreciate it if you guys would like and share this if you find value in our content today. And if you know somebody who would be a great guest, please get them in touch with me. Because we are booking a couple weeks in advance right now, and would love to get some more perspectives, including female perspectives. So if you guys know any practitioners of the esoteric arts within the LGBTQ community or our allies who would like to be on the show, whether they're male, female, cis, or trans, it doesn't matter. Everybody is welcome here. Just get in touch with us. And today we're going to talk about intentional creation. This is kind of an extension of the past couple weeks when we've had a look at the principles, the first 2 principles in the Kabbalion, and we started to talk about things like the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence. And so today I thought it would be interesting, since Terry comes from a New Thought perspective, as do I, and we all share the metaphysical, whether it's Wiccan or witchcraft or magical, we'll just say, traditions, to draw the comparisons, because so many people look at what we're doing and they say, that's just not my cup of tea, and because they're comparing us to Sabrina on Netflix or American Horror Story. Which there could be worse things to be compared against. But those are unrealistic. Those are not what we're talking about when we practice our craft. And so I think without kind of coaching either Casey or Terry about this conversation, I'm just going to let it flow organically, and let's talk a little bit about how they call witchcraft a craft for a reason. It's something that we create, and we either create with thought, we create with with our mind, with that mentalism, or we then speak our intentions into reality, into the beginnings of that creative process. And as I said on a show a couple weeks ago, what a witch really does in my perspective is doesn't change the situation, doesn't change the person, doesn't change the circumstance, but works with the energy around that person, around that circumstance, around that condition, so that the body or humanity or whatever begins to course correct itself, and we then come back to that state of equilibrium, that state of remembering our true nature, where there's harmony and balance and ease. So give us your perspectives, guys, and don't wait for me to call on anybody. This is including those of you that are watching. If you want to make a comment, you want to ask a question, please do so in the comments below the show.
Terry, do you want to go?
Well, it's funny. I just love that one line from American Horror where she goes, "Yes, I do think I'm clever." I always, whenever I'm talking about magic in my writing, our magic I always spell with a K, Magick, and I associate the one without the K as what David Copperfield does. Now, we three know that that's not magic, that's illusion, and that's fine. But people think of that as magic, and like you said, Sabrina and everything. The way I define magic with a K is magic is the natural use, or the use of natural, though seldom understood, natural laws to affect change. Coincidentally, not so coincidentally, the type of affirmative prayer that Dr. G and I are both aware of and trained in, spiritual mind treatment as taught by Ernest Holmes, would be the same definition. There are some metaphysicians and religious scientists who would be appalled at that. And there are, fortunately, more of those out there who would say, yeah, duh. And I've never really had a problem with seeing new thought in conflict with my pagan thought or ideas, because really, religious science came out of that philosophy, came out of all different faiths, all different religions. And even though we call it new thought, it's really more akin to the old religion, the cooperation of all these natural forces and not trying to change things. It's like one thing that we teach in religious science is when you do a treatment, when you give a treatment for someone, you are not trying to change the situation or the condition. You are not trying to change anything in the other person. As we are all one, we are seeing this as attempting to change the consciousness of the practitioner to know the truth about the situation. So how that works out for the individual it depends on the situation. I love the experience of, I can do magic or I can do treatment for someone, for three people. If I did a treatment for all three of us, or if I did a spell for all three of us for a job or a relationship, we wouldn't all get the same job or all get the same relationship unless it was with each other. But but the whole point being is that there's a universal consciousness that runs through all of us that we either have access to, but we realize it to differing degrees. And that's going to decide and know for us and as us and through us what's best for us in any given situation.
Right on. Casey.
Take away.
Well, it's funny you brought it up. Like, my coven was very heavily influenced by New Thought, specifically through Sybil Leek, because she's one of the people who gave us some of the information that we have. And she was very heavily influenced with New Thought. I have said time and time again to all of my witches, the power of the witch is the power of thought. What you're really doing here with magic is trying to align your inner self with the external world and thereby make a change. And so you find that in the seasons, you find that in the Sabbath cycle, you find that within the lunar cycle as well. And ultimately, what a witch is really trying to do is operate along the tenet of balance. We call it the tenet of balance because we come from Sybil Leek. I'm sure other witches have other versions of this. But like what you're really trying to do is put yourself within nature's current, whatever that is at the moment. And instead of fighting the current, use it in order to get what you want and in order to make your life what you want it to be. And so the best way to do that is exactly what Terry was saying. Don't try to change anything. Just align the disparate energies that are already there in such a way that they merge to create the intention that you want. And then act according to that intention and continue to re-solidify it over time. So for me, magic has always been sort of, this is trite to say it, but both an art and a science. There are very specific things you can do, and they are structured. First you do A, then you do B, then you do C, and bam, you got what you want. But there's an art to that as you do A, B, and C over time, you begin to develop technique. You begin to develop a personal style and a flair to the way that you do it that really falls in line with the way that you perceive the world.
I'm pretty familiar with Casey's work. I'm just saying. I know this is what his book looks like, guys. So go online and buy it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm pretty clear on what he thinks as that's concerned, and that's that philosophy from a pagan Wiccan standpoint or witch's standpoint is very similar to the science of mind philosophy, which is a combination of religion, philosophy, and science. So there is that's also why we call ourselves practitioners. And why it's like you talk about practicing physicians, like I don't want a practicing physician. I want somebody who knows what she's doing. Whereas the case, it is a practice. It doesn't always. I'm never surprised when a spell works. I'm never surprised when treatment works. I am often amazed at the way in which it works, because I sometimes tarry time and divine right time doesn't always mesh, and that really pisses me off. But my ego has to get over it. But the other part is that there's sometimes we can go right from point A to point B, and we're done once and done. It's good. Other times we go all over the map to get to where we are, and each little step was like, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do that? And you get to step 23 or 24 and say, oh my God, there it is. And everything that I did to this point brought me to where I am, which is kind of like life as well. But it's just, I think the one thing Casey had mentioned about the Sabbats and the Esbats, the lunar celebrations, it's the one thing I like, one of the many things I like about living in the East is I was raised in California on the coast. And, California, the only way a change of seasons is occurring in California is the decorations and, the stores change. Whereas here, aligning ourselves with the changes in seasons and what's happening, particularly now in Pennsylvania, where we've just gone from snow, a week and a half ago to 50 and 60 degree weather where it can actually start doing spring cleaning outside. You align yourself with, and you realize, oh my God, these same things are happening within me right now. And how wonderful that is that we can recognize that and to work through that and to apply that to our life and living.
There are two things that you guys said that I want to talk about a little bit. One of those is that, let's see, I'm still trying to get the hang of this. There we go. One of those things is what Terry just said. And that is that as within, so without, that the cycle of the seasons. When I was 17 or 18 years old, I had a business mentor who was not involved in metaphysics. He was kind of marginally involved with New Thought. His name was Mr. Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn would teach that our lives follow the cycle of the seasons. And he would tell a story where he was sitting in a boardroom, and someone said, well, for IBM, I believe, and they said, what are your predictions for what will happen in the next year with the current economy? And he stopped for a few minutes and he thought, and he said the same thing that happened last year. And he said, because winter's always going to follow fall. Fall is always going to follow summer. Summer is always going to follow spring. And isn't that true about our lives? And so the next sort of topic, I mean, I love that this is just as meant to be, flowing so easily and so much in the direction that I was hoping we could touch on today. Because the next thing I wanted to talk about is, and I want to hear you guys' perspectives on this, is on Facebook and other social media forums, in local meetings that we have, we constantly see, and I want to be clear, I'm not talking about the people who are just lonely and want attention, and so every week they have a new malady, every week they have a new drama. That's, we're not talking about like the RuPaul's Drag Race phenomenon. We're talking about in real life, when somebody comes to us and says, hey, this is going on in my life, and do you have a spell for, or a spiritual mind treatment for? Because just like our spell work, and growing up in the Italian tradition, and that I probably beat this horse to death already. I don't like to necessarily call it stregaria because it's not. I didn't grow up in the Grimassi version of stregaria. Just the old Sicilian craft. There was a formula that you used, and the older you became, and the longer you practiced, you began to see that formula in all of your spell work and in all of the ritual. In Science of Mind, we have the same thing. There's a formula to a spiritual mind treatment that is part of the reason it works, and it's not because the formula itself is magic. It's that the process of thought and intentionality and conscious creation that guides you through is the magic. And so when somebody comes to me and says, John Michael, have you got a spell for so-and-so? Have you got a spell for this or a spell for that? My encouragement to them, unless it's something that's very urgent and that they think they're on death's door and they want to know what to say in order to affirm their health, then I want them to find within themselves the words to affirm who they really are, what their experience of life really is beneath the appearances. And what do you guys think about that? And because I have this really strong sense, and even more so as we're moving into this once or twice every 100 years cycle, with the full moon falling on the equinox, the vernal equinox, and all of these other phenomena happening astrologically. It feels to me like we're at a point just before a breakthrough into something new, into something bigger, something more expansive than I think many of us or any of us can really conceive. So what are your thoughts on that, if that even made any sense?
So it did, and take it away, Casey.
All right. So is your question, what are my thoughts on healing other people, or how do I do it?
No, more like the what would you say? Because we have a lot of young witches that watch us, and I don't mean young in age, I mean in practice. And they think a lot of times, again, based on television and books and stories that they've seen, that we who've practiced for like five decades, in my case, have some kind of secret. And we know that there's not a secret. If there was a secret, then nobody's told me yet. And I've, but what I know is that I've come to understand that if A equals B and B equals C, then A has to equal C. So if it's true for one, it's true for all. If it's true within, it's true without. What do you say to one of the folks in your coven, for example?
So, all right, I'll just speak about witchcraft since that's what I know. If somebody in my coven came to me and was like wondering what the secret was, my response to them would be pretty much what you've just said. There really is no secret. There's a formula. You can do this, you can do that. But it all really does start with knowing yourself. Like if you're sick, let's say you've got, I don't know, let's pick something dramatic. Like you've got cancer, right? Like breast cancer as a woman. The first thing I would think to myself is, what exactly have you not been expressing that you feel grief about? What exactly has hurt your heart, so to speak, that you can't process or you refuse to acknowledge for one reason or another? And they may be really good reasons. Like, this is not guilting or shaming somebody for having a disease. This is, let's really put the witch's pyramid into action and start with to know. If you know what you have been avoiding, it becomes so much easier to navigate fixing the problem than if you have to go through like lifetimes of drama just to figure out where the real problem is. It prevents you from having to look for a needle in a haystack, so to speak. So for me, I always start my witches with, you have to know yourself and you have to know the situation you find yourself in. You have to see beneath the situation. The truth is, you're right, Sabrina, and I love Sabrina and I love American Horror Story Coven. I'm not ashamed to be connected to them at all, but they do make it seem really dramatic and make everybody who does it seem really special. The truth is, it's a lot of hard work. It is grueling mental work. It is psychological work. It is a lot of denying yourself things you want just to see that you're in control of yourself and the thing you desire is not. It's a lot of learning to align your ego with your higher self. It's work. And at the end of the day, what you're really talking about, as Terry said with the practice, is getting better at that work. See, I'm a yoga teacher by profession outside of writing the books. So I look at a practice, a magical practice, kind of like I look at a workout or a yoga practice. Each day you have a chance to approach this thing that you do from a very different perspective. And each day you have a chance to like get on the mat, so to speak, and really learn about your own self, because that's really where it's going to start. When you can learn about yourself and you can recognize what's assailing you in each moment, and you can recognize what's yours versus what somebody else gave you, it becomes so much easier to fix the problems and the things that go bump in your life. So at the end of the day, what I really tell my witches is, if you want to do this, it's going to be a lot of hard work. It'll be fun. The veneer that we put on this thing, the mantle you'll get to wear, will be a lot of fun and we'll have a great time doing it. But there are going to be ups and downs and you're going to go through a lot. And just like anything else you would practice at to get good, it's going to take work.
Terry.
He just said it. No. So let me bring that into from a specific coven witches and high priest perspective into my witchcraft, which is hedge witch, kitchen witch, eclectic witch, and spiritual mind treatment from that side. As Cher once said about her figure, if you could bottle what it took to get a figure like this, we would, and make lots of money on it. It takes a hell of a lot of work. Yeah. And it's often that when we get to a point where we have practiced for so long, our life does start work. We expect it to work, and it does most of the time. And the challenges that we have are very different than people who don't know about metaphysics, don't know about self-intention and self-empowerment. And so they think that we've got something special. What we've got is perhaps, months, years, decades of practice in what we're doing. I thought the interesting part about what you said, I just wanted to mention it, was that you were talking about preparation. And in so many ways, when we go to create, like tonight, I'm going to be doing a full moon ritual for the Espit, for the minor Sabbath, and Espit they're having that coincide, and there is preparation for that, and it's going to be the same. The preparation that I do, the actual pieces are different, but I'm still going to assemble certain things. The altar is going to be assembled in the same way. I'm going to open and close the circle the same way. I will call deities or energies, maybe not the same ones, but I will be doing that. It's the same way with treatment. You go through the 5 or 6 or 7 steps, whichever your flavor is and how you were trained. But in that middle point of that treatment, you talk about what it is specifically. And we can help others, not to heal them, not to do for them, but to bring them. I like to think of myself rather than a healer, although other people do, but that's beside the point. I think of myself as walking side by side with a person, not pulling them into healing, not pushing them into healing, walking side by side when I can. Sometimes I have to be what we call a tunnel knocker. And that means they're in this dark tunnel in muck and mire and crap of all kinds. And I'm on the outside knocking on the outside of that tunnel, that tube that they're in, saying, it's okay, baby. You keep going. You keep going. Slosh through it. The light at the tunnel is not a train. It's the light, and I'm gonna be there on the other side. I'll help wash you off and everything else, but I'm not gonna get in there with you. And what, like Casey was saying, it's gonna be a hell of a lot of work. That's not easy for people in Western culture to accept. I don't want to work. I want to take a pill and make it all better. I want to read a book and make it all better. Ooh, I'm going to read this book that talks about something that doesn't really exist. It's like Casey said, there's no secret. It's out there in the middle of everything, but people don't want to hear that truth. It's like, what was that? Jack Nicholson in that one movie that you don't want to hear the truth. You can't handle the truth. The truth is that we've got this power within us. The truth is that, we may not know how to do it. And the secret, if there is one, is that we don't need to know how. Our business is not the how. My business is to know what I want, or to get out of my client or out of the person that's coming to me what they want. As a counselor, as a therapist, as a practitioner, as a witch, I ask people, what do you want? And they spend the next 25 minutes telling me what they don't want. So great. What you focus on increases. Thank you for sharing. And then we go into what people don't want to tell what they want, because one of the big problems is that often we don't feel that we deserve it, or we feel we're asking for too much, or I feel like we're asking for something that we're not supposed to ask for.
Or we're afraid to get our hands dirty.
Yeah, or we can't figure out how to do it. It's just like, I was talking to my prayer partner today, and it's like, we both had like a little breakthrough, and it came. This morning I had an amazing epiphany during my massage. I get massaged by this guy every 2 weeks, and it's something that it's not a luxury. It's part of my healthcare program. He has no training in what we do, and yet he read what I'm going through like it was written on my back. And it was like, if we open ourselves up to this, it can come from, but we have to be able to listen. The old story is, I heard that from my mother-in-law, but who'd want to believe her? We don't get to decide how that channel is going to come necessarily.
Yeah, I think, when you said it's like it was written on your back, it was. And
yeah, it was literally, yes.
He was able to read that. So for someone else, I can tell someone who's walked the yogic path, okay, where I need to take you in this time of chaos. As a chaos witch, I'm going to bring you to the heart space over the head, the Chittakash. And in that space, you're safe. And then we can begin to do the work, because the chaos isn't going to change all around you until you quiet your mind and realize that that's just energy. It's not anything to be afraid of. Then I talk to a witch, and I can couch it in metaphysical terms, because they can read that. They might read the tea leaves. Someone else might read tarot cards. Your massage guy reads your back. And it's all the same thing. It's the universe just reaffirming the truth of who we are, and finding that, digging through that, and being willing to get our hands dirty.
Yeah, I had a massage practice for 25 years, and I was trained as both a reflexologist, foot, hand, and ear reflexologist as well as a massage therapist and body worker. And I would start my sessions out with a short reflexology treatment on the feet and the hands and the ears. And I could find out what was going on. And it would always reflect in the back or the legs or the shoulders or wherever it was. But by doing that, I could tell without the client telling me, I could tell where their issue was or what their issue was. And so as I just happened to be working on the back in the heart space, because the heart space goes all the way through, not just on the front, I'd say, so how, how are things going with your wife, your husband, or whomever, or your boyfriend? Or I'd start bringing that. And the body will tell you things if we allow it to. I've had people go into hysterical laughter during massage and sobbing where I just had to hold them for 10 minutes because that's all they could take. I've had people go into past life experiences. We do hold things within our body, and it's just another way of telling us. It's like when another practitioner, another witch comes to me and says, that I'd like you to work on this problem. And, I've had a practitioner tell to me, well, what happened when you treated for it? I'm going, well, I know I should have done that, but I didn't, It's just, I know what to do. I can, if I have a headache, I can treat and work on my hands and work on my feet or work on my shoulders. I can take an Advil. I can do all of that. Or I can call somebody and complain and say, oh, I've got this headache because so-and-so is being such an ass. We have to be able to meet as we would meet our clients and the people that come to us for help and for support and for assistance, just to meet ourselves at that same place and be kind to ourselves.
That's the thing I think I've been trying to wrap into this. And thank you, Terry, for bringing it up. The thing that somebody new asking me would really get from me that I don't give them until after we've started the conversation and we start talking is exactly what he just said. We are so mean to ourselves and so forgiving of other people generally. So
yes.
Some people are awful to other people too, but in general, most of us are much more forgiving of other people than we are of ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of times you may think I'm really good at this thing, then you're not, but it's because you're judging yourself so harshly.
Right.
And you're putting the rose-colored glasses on when you look at me.
Right.
And so a huge part of what makes us ill or at dis-ease is really our own judgment about ourselves. So above and beyond knowing yourself, why not also be compassionate towards yourself? That doesn't
hear an amen from the congregation.
Right? That doesn't mean you have license to be lazy, but it means maybe just waking up and breathing that day. That may legitimately be the best you can do. And why compound your misery by adding guilt?
And I don't know about you guys, but
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I feel like this, like where this direction, the direction this conversation just went, also takes us one step further to say that while we may recognize that we're being more compassionate toward others than we are toward ourselves, the next step to get there for me was recognizing that what I'm seeing in that person is a reflection of the beliefs and the chaotic data and the fears that I have about myself. And so if I can be compassionate toward them, that has to begin with being compassionate toward me, forgiving me, so that I can know the greater truth about them. If I'm continuing to hold myself hostage, I can't know the truth about them because I'm not even willing to look at the truth about me.
Yeah.
And that becomes almost becomes the advertisement for our way of life within the many traditions, is that we do this thing that we do because by bringing ourselves back into harmony with nature, with universal law, with first principle, we're able to alleviate suffering in those that we touch, those that we meet, and vice versa. It just becomes it's all about that oneness.
Yeah. I sometimes feel, even now, more than the past, but even now, I feel like a charlatan because Someone will come to me with a problem that I'm dealing with, that I feel I should be over by now in my high bustle, high righteous metaphysical, high bustle attention or indignation. But years ago, when I was studying to be a religious science practitioner, I worked at a world ministry of prayer where we took calls and letters from all over the world. We didn't have email back then. It was that long ago. Anyway, at the end of the shift, we would tally up what issues we were working on, because there's really only 5 issues that come up. Any problem goes into one of these 5 areas. And invariably 60% of my calls, or even more, would be about what I was working on. Mm-hmm. There was also a book that I used to work for, a book I used to write for, Creative Thought magazine, and we would write treatments in it. When I was a very young minister, I was in my first year of ministry, and I was just, my desk was a cardboard box with a makeshift computer on it that I set on the floor in a spare bedroom. And I was just, this is ministry. And I said, I need help. And so I opened up Creative Thought, and you can do this with the Bible or popular mechanics or anything, and just flop it and point, and that's going to be the answer, and just Spirit works through you. And I covered up, I had my thumb over who wrote it. And I read the treatment, and I said, oh my God, this is exactly what I need. I've got to call this person, because there was a list in the back of all the practitioners. I'm going to call them and have a practicing session with them. And of course, as you probably already guessed, it was my treatment.
Right on.
So that was that cosmic giggle, as one of my teachers would call it, where it's just, you got to start with where you are. I had a massage client one time. She was referred to me by a doctor because she had been hit by a car by her ex-boyfriend. And she was literally shattered psychologically, emotionally, and physically from top to bottom. There was no place that she didn't have pain except the bottom of her feet. And so I did reflexology on her. And I found out she also there was abuse issues. So she really I was the first man who had really touched her in a long time. But she had so much pain. I said, well, let's start where you don't have pain. Well, I have pain everywhere. I said, do you have pain here? And I was holding her little toe. And she said, no. And I said, then there is some place that you don't have pain. And let's rejoice and celebrate and be grateful for that and move on to the next place. And little by little, it took a long time, but she was able to, begin living life with a little better perspective and a little less pain. But we often, I end and begin my days with forgiveness and thanksgiving. I wake up saying what I'm grateful for and write it down. And I forgive before I go to bed every night, before I go to sleep. And I always start with myself. Forgive myself for all of the I feel like I failed at.
I'm mindful of the fact that Terry's got somewhere he's got to be. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to go to single screens with each of you. Tell the folks that are watching how they can get in touch with you. We'll start with you, Terry, since you're on my console here, all the way to the left.
Okay.
Here.
I often find myself all the way to the left, but that's beside the point. On many different areas. You can reach me on my website at terrydrewkaranen.com. I realize I'm signed in Facebook as Tier Lone Wolf, which is my personal Facebook account. That may or may not be appearing on somebody's screen. That actually is my magical or witch name, and that I use in spirituality. But I changed my name on Facebook because my professional life is taking off, and there's things in my personal life that don't necessarily need to be public. So I have 2 of them. But I do have a Facebook page. What?
What was the email again?
The email is terry@terrydrewkaranen.com. And I also have available free of charge over 300 blogs, blog writings from the past 2 decades on various topics. You can just go to that same website, but you started out with blog.terrydrewkaranen.com, and you can use pull down menus to see whatever issue you might be thinking about, and gives you some 24-hour support. I have an email list that goes out to people on Monday mornings. There's a message and a treatment. On Thursday, that's just to my subscribers. And then a blog goes out on Thursday on Facebook and my subscribers and various other places. And if you subscribe to my email list, you do get a free ebook. You get first dibs on everything that I'm doing with workshops and seminars or new books, and all of my books, the new ebooks that I have coming out, as they come out, they're on for free, but only for my subscribers for a week, so they can grab them and then they go on for the public. So would love to hear from you if there's any way I can support you, if you have other questions or anything like that.
Fantastic. And you did a great job of giving me enough time to type this stuff in there. So you are on, Casey, and talk slow because I type slow.
All right. So you can reach me at a bunch of different places. I'll just keep it really simple. If you're interested in the type of witchcraft I do, you can reach me at galawitchcraft.com. If you're interested in just kind of following along and seeing my personality like unfold before you, you can follow me on my public Facebook page, which is facebook.com/HexyBeast. So for you, that's HEXEBEAST. And if you want to reach me for any reason through email, it's just Casey Giovinco at hexybeast.com.
HEXE?
Mm-hmm. Like witch in German.
Okay.
And people always ask me where I got the name. It was kind of a funny little thing. So I've been working out most of my life, and we have this thing in working out called beast mode, where like if you're really hitting the weights hard that day, you've like hit beast mode. So I started to play with that a little bit, and then I thought, you know, witch and beast mode. And then as I was working on some of the stuff for my tradition, we do the Lupercalia every year. And the Lupercalia for us is not so much about like fertility and pregnancy and all of that, where you're whipping women so they get pregnant with babies. For us, it's more about unleashing the inner beast inside yourself, which I have really heavily associated with the ego. So learning how to put the ego into work for the higher self and making it a very witchy process. And so I kind of like play with all of that stuff in my blogs and in my Facebook posts and a bunch of other places. And I'm just trying to kind of roll it all together in my own unique way.
Right on. And thank you both for being here, you know, for sharing your insights. And, you know, folks may watch this and think that we scripted the hell out of this. But I promise you, this was just, we do this unscripted every week, and it works out better. And besides the fact that I have enough to deal with on this console in front of me, that I could not even begin to deal with the script. So I think probably the most difficult thing I had was somebody the other day that I had to introduce on another program, and their credentials were like 42 miles long. And I just cannot do, if I have to read off of a script, I sound like I'm reading off a script, mainly because I wear trifocals, and getting my head, I look like I'm doing this the whole time. I've got to find the little part that works for that distance. So guys, thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing. I really appreciate the time that you took to be with us today. And I want to encourage folks that if you want to see the replay of this, it will be on our website, which is inneralchemy.online. There's no .com there. It's inneralchemy.online. And you guys know how to reach me because you're actually watching the show on my Facebook live feed. So you can reach me that way as well. And as we do at the end of every one of our broadcasts, I want to encourage you to stay in the moment, to be grateful for everything you've got. You heard us speaking today about the importance of bringing that gratitude, bringing that grounding, returning to that sacred silence, the space between the breaths. Because if you can't be grateful for what you've got, there's no reason to believe you're going to be any happier with more. And always remember, as one of my mentors, the late Kennedy Schultz said, the best is yet to come. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. And I'll put us all on screen so we can all say goodbye. Love you guys. Namaste.
Take care. Namaste.